Hey everybody, behind me here is a Vanity combination 6-drawer cabinet, pretty popular for vanities and even other rooms. I want to talk a little bit about this cabinet. You've clicked this video because you're looking for an assembly video, but rather than cluttering our library with repetitive videos, I'm going to refer you to the Vanity combination cabinet, Vanity VCL video that we have. This cabinet is basically identical except it's got an extra bank of drawers. The assembly doesn't change except for some of the nuances I'm going to walk you through in a moment, okay? So stick with the video so you can see those nuances, but I'm not going to bother showing how to glue it up and slide the spreader strips in and all that. That's all covered in the VCL video. All right, so let's talk about this VC6D. A couple things to know. It's available in widths from 48 to 72 standard, heights 31.5 to 34.5, okay? As you go inside that range, you can design in 16th inch height increments. As the height changes, let's say you went up from 31.5 to 34.5, these openings are always 5 and 8 inches. What changes is the bottom opening. This is a custom frame. For the astute viewer who's looking at this, you're saying, well, that opening's not 8 inches. This was a custom frame a customer asked for, so this is not exactly like your standard VC6D, but normally it's 5 inches, 8 inches, 11.5 on a 34.5 inch high cabinet. As you vary inside that range, this bottom opening is the one that gets bigger or smaller depending on your height, okay? Depths, you can go from 12 inches all the way up to 30 inches in 3-inch increments. And the 3-inch increments are always because the drawer glides that come from Bloom, a German manufacturer that makes our glide hardware. The glides are only available in 3-inch increments. So we can't do an odd increment of like 14 because the glides won't match up to the drawer box. So got to work on those 3-inch increments from 12 to 30. Now, I want to talk a little bit about some of the nuances of the assembly on this. There's not a lot to it, but these structural panels or non-structural dividers inside can get you in trouble if you're not aware. So let's jump into some of the nuances of this box. Okay, again, to stress, this assembly is just like the video I referenced you to. Drawer glide hardware, the bracket holes in the back, all that's going to be self-explanatory. What makes it odd is this divider panel. This divider panel is not structural. It does not dovetail into the cabinet in any way, shape, or form. It's just a floating half-inch thick piece of plywood cut to size, front to back, top to bottom, okay? And really why this is here, it's an add-on. You don't even have to put it in if you don't want to, but a lot of people don't want the sink area when you open these doors. They don't want to see the sides of their drawers. They don't want their curling iron to fall off and land inside the sink area. They kind of want it to look partitioned off. So I get that. In that case, if you want to put them in, we'll show you how to do that. But what I want to mention is they float behind the front frame. You can really locate them anywhere behind this front frame that makes sense for your application. In this case, we were doing full overlay. So in full overlay, the drawer glide rests on the front frame, and we didn't put a rear bracket in there because it would have kind of collided. If your assembly has the holes for it, you can put a rear bracket in if you want. We chose not to and moved it over and actually mounted the drawer glide straight to the cabinet side panel. Okay, that's just a fielder's choice. Remember I mentioned that this cabinet was custom this way. The customer also asked for a custom width here. On the VC6D, the drawer openings are always 12 inches, and as the cabinet gets bigger or smaller, these are the openings that flex. This customer wanted an 11-inch opening instead of the 12, and so our holes for those brackets wouldn't have mounted. They wouldn't have and measured over to the right area. It would have put the bracket too far inboard. So we just put the panel right up tight to the front frame and ran the drawer glide right down it, okay? You could have mounted it in the middle if you wanted to. The hinges on full overlay hinges wrap around the front frame, so you wouldn't want to take this panel and make it flush with this opening because you wouldn't be able to get your hinge around it. Same with inset. I got an inset hinge here. The inset hinge sits on the back of the front frame like that. So you wouldn't want this panel all the way over to here, but you could put it in the middle or flush it out. Either one of those is fine. When you go to secure the panel, there's nothing up top to secure it to, but you can come in all along the back, cabinet back. You can run pins or screws, and you can come into the cabinet bottom with pins or screws to fasten it in place, and then you're pretty much fixed. Again, it's not structural. Its only purpose is to block off those drawers. Now, let's say you had an inset application. This gets a little trickier. This is where you may not even want to use the panel because it gets that painful. This bracket mounts to the back of the front frame and it carries over behind the front frame about a ½ inch, okay? Then you have the Tentex bracket on this side that carries over a ½ inch. So if you were to center this panel, you will not get both this bracket and this Tentex bracket behind that front frame with this panel. So you have one of two options. Either do what we did here and move the panel over and just run the drawer glide straight on the side of the partition wall, or if you want to use both the Tentex carrier bracket, which is nice because you have the in-out adjustability. If you want to use a Tentex bracket and this, you're going to have to cut a C shape in the partition panel so that the hinge will clear and the Tentex bracket will clear. So you have to cut like a big C out of the plywood, which is a little ugly looking. So if you're going to go inset, I would suggest you mount the hinge bracket, and then I would suggest you run the plywood flush like this. If you center it, you will not get both of them in. So be aware of that. I'd hate to see you get this panel centered, then you go to put your hardware on or whatever, and you have a problem. Now remember, the hardware is typically mounted on the front frame before you even assemble. So what you really would find is you go to put the partition panel in and realize it's running into your hardware. So think these things through before you actually assemble the box, put your hardware on, think of where you want that panel to make the best sense for your application. Now let's talk about sink top spreader strips. Okay, the other nuance to these vanity cabinets, or pretty much any cabinet intended to take a sink, with the exception of our apron sink base cabinet, instead of using, if you've watched our other assembly videos, instead of using the left to right spreader strips that go across, they use a C-shaped spreader strip that goes down this way. When you're assembling, instead of one big top or two spreader strips, you're going to slide these in and they're dovetailed into the side of the cabinet. You will see this in the VCL video we referred you to for assembly instructions on this box, but I'm just making you aware that this is the kind of spreader strip you're going to get. The horizontal ones that run the length of the cabinet you don't get because they would impinge your ability to drop a sink into the sink area. You have to cut them out or take them out altogether. So they give you these the I-beam ones way over here in the left and right. That's the only other nuance to these vanity or sink style cabinets from a standard base. Okay, this sums up our coverage of the VC6D cabinet. Again, reference that VCL assembly and it should steer you straight in terms of how the box goes together. This is just a bigger version of it with more drawers. And remember, those panels can get you in trouble if you're not careful, so call your cabinet coach if you have any questions at all. They'll walk you through it. Thanks for watching, everybody. Have a great day.